Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Diane. Today is the start of another diary entry. So for this diary entry, we are going to continue to focus on my reads for the Orilium Magical Readathon Spring Equinox edition. As I had mentioned in my previous diary entry, I am working on a higher calling this year. I decided to go with World Builder because I have already gotten my undergrad career finished with the Master of Elements. And to do World Builder, not only did the prompts really work for me, but I got a credit discount for having done Master of Elements. So everything just worked out in my favor for that one. So yeah, I have read quite a few things that I need to talk to you about. And so I definitely want to start off this diary entry and let you know what I have read towards my higher calling. So continuing with the manga, because manga is one of the things that I can read to fulfill my higher calling. I continued with Volume 7 and Volume 8 of Mission Yozakura Family. This one is by Hitsuji Gondaira, published by Viz Rated Teen. So in this one, we're following a guy who gets orphaned when he's in high school. He ends up joining his best friend's family, but he doesn't know that his best friend is from a family of spies. And so in order to protect himself and his best friend, he ends up having to learn how to become a spy. And we kind of follow the mystery behind people who want to go after the family, things that had happened that kind of led up to him losing his family and a bunch of other things that are going on. I really enjoy the series. There's a bunch of seriousness that's in the story itself, but there are also very hilarious comedic moments. In volume, I can't remember if it was volume 7 or 8. I guess the mangaka had some kind of character creation contest, and he had received a bunch of entries with character design that people thought would be interesting to interweave into the story, because we do see quite a few different spies as the story goes on, whether it be spies that are working with our family or spies that are going after our family. But there is a pretty eclectic group of spies we get introduced to in one of these volumes. And I laughed so hard at one particular character design. But there are lots of moments in here where our spies are doing really crazy, hilarious things. And I really, really appreciate that. I do enjoy this series a lot, and I'm looking forward to continuing with it. So I ended up reading these 2 volumes, gave both of them 4 stars, and we'll definitely be continuing as I think I'm up to the 20s already collecting these volumes, but really, really enjoyable. It is available on the Shonen Jump app if you have a subscription, and that's how I started reading the series, and it got me really interested in it. So really good, highly recommend that one. And then I continued with the Ayakashi Hunter's Tainted Bride. This one is by Midori Yuma and manga by Mamenosuke Fujimaru. This one is published by Kodansha, rated older teen, so I read volumes 2 and 3. I read volume 1 for the manga advent calendar in 2025 and really enjoyed it, hence me going and picking up the rest of what's available currently, because I really, really wanted to read more in this series. So this series follows a woman who, when she was much younger, was known in her clan to be someone of very high spiritual power, and therefore she was very valuable as far as the family goes. They end up betrothing her to another very prominent family, and things happen which ends up leading her to be attacked by an Ayakashi. The aftermath of that attack leaves her with a mark on her forehead, and therefore she becomes tainted. It brings down her value, and she ends up going from this really valued person to basically a servant. Not only just a servant, but a servant of the family that she had originally been betrothed to the son of. And she gets bullied, she gets physically abused, just treated really, really badly. And one day, an Ayakashi hunter comes to the family looking for a bride, because that's one of the things the family does, is to provide like matchmaking services. That's one of the ways that they make their money. And he sees our female character and ends up taking her for his bride. And so it kind of follows her learning to live outside of the area that she's been the entire time, and seeing like what things her new fiance does. Because like I said, he is an Ayakashi hunter. He lives in a house full of Ayakashi, and everybody, the way that they treat her is so different now from how she'd been treated. So it's kind of a story of her finally getting to experience life and enjoy things, and not having to live with not only the physical scar from the attack, but all of the scars that she accumulated from how she was treated all of those years afterwards. And so I really enjoyed this one. These 2 volumes definitely kind of wrap up things that had happened in the first volume. I would say all 3 of the first 3 volumes definitely go together. I think in the next volume, we're going to see a different kind of arc, I think. But I will say there is quite a bit of drama that goes on with this. Just the nature of the story lends to it. But I really have been enjoying watching our character kind of learn about herself, about what she wants, and kind of stand up for herself for the first time as we're reading through these 2 volumes. And so it's really, really good. I enjoy it a lot. It is from the creator of Kakuryou, which is another story that features a woman who gets betrothed to a demon by her grandfather to pay off his debt. And she ends up going to this other world and learning to live with Ayakashi. It's a story that I really enjoy. I am behind on that manga series, but we finally got caught up with the anime of that one. Really, really enjoyed it. So I think this author's work really just works for me, and just really have been enjoying both Kakuryou and the Ayakashi Hunter's Tainted Bride. So if you have read Kakuryou, I would tell you should probably read this one, because I think you'd enjoy it. And if you've read this one and have not read Kakuryou, same thing. You can check out the anime of Kakuryou as well. Very good. I enjoyed it a lot. Ended up giving both of these 4 stars as well. I wish that they'd bring the light novels of this, because I think I would have a much better experience. Just because there's probably a lot of detail that they're just leaving out of these volumes because of all of the gorgeous artwork. But really, really enjoyable. Looking forward to continuing with that one as well. And then the last thing I have to talk to you about today, I just finished yesterday. It's my first novel for the month, so it did take me quite a while. But the novel that I had decided to read based on the prompts that were given for my higher calling was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. So this is the 3rd book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. You can see I have this gorgeous black edition. This is a Barnes & Noble exclusive. I did go ahead and pick up the entire series in this edition when I saw it, because by then I had already read the first 2 and I really enjoyed them. So I thought, I might as well pick them up, because I do prefer the look of this edition than the 2 other editions that have been released. So really enjoyed this one. However, I will say that I did not actually read from this edition. So I listened to this one on audiobook. I borrowed a copy of the audiobook from Hoopla. There is a change in narrator from the first and second audiobook. And so by this time, there have been so many different narrations released for the series. You've got the single narrator editions. You have the dramatized adaptations, which are full cast audio narrations. And then you also have I think it's a 10th anniversary edition, which is the most recent edition, which is also done by a different narrator. A single narrator, but somebody different from the person who narrated originally. And so I had gone with the single narrator, the first edition, when I had done the first two in the series. And so I went ahead and did the same with the third in the series. And like I said, there was a change in the narrator. It was good. I enjoyed it. I will say that I'm not sure if it was the narration or if it was what was going on in the story. But there were definite times where I was invested and then I wasn't. And it was kind of flipping back and forth a lot. I would say within the first 3/4 of this book. By the time we got to the last quarter, I was fully invested. And I think if you read this one, you know what's going on there. And that's kind of why. There's a lot of things that happen at the end of this book. I definitely was more interested in what was going on in the last quarter of this book than I was for, I would say, most of this book. And it's a thick one. It comes in at about 700 pages, this edition. I think the previous editions were a little bit over 700 pages, but it was a long audio book as well. And I usually listen on 2 times speed. I did try to speed it up to see if I could get through it a little bit faster, and the narration was just distorted, and so it didn't make sense. And so I did end up listening to it at 2 times speed. It was an enjoyable experience. Like I said, I do enjoy this world. I enjoyed our characters. I enjoyed the things that had happened in here, but there were definite things where I was just like not as invested as into what was going on. And so, yeah, I don't know if that had to do with the way it was being narrated or if it was just the story itself. But I did end up giving this one 3.5 stars. I rounded up to 4 stars on Goodreads because you cannot do half stars. On Storygraph, this is sitting at a 3.5. I think on reread, this probably does have the ability to rate up to an actual 4 for me. And I think when I do my reread, because I will, this will probably be read physically as opposed to doing the audio narration. Just so that I can see if that makes any difference in my enjoyment. I will say also that a lot of the romantic relationship stuff that was happening in here, I wasn't too invested in. And when I say romantic relationship stuff, I really mean like the mentions of sexual relations in here. I felt like there were too many mentions of it. Like, it's fine. Like, I understand that, you know, our characters are in love and they're doing things with each other, but I don't need to know all the time. I don't need to know all the time. I do feel like it was an excessive amount to fill pages and not necessarily to lend to moving the story forward, because by this point, I think you already know, like, how much certain characters mean to each other and the depths of their relationships, right? So you don't need to know that, oh yeah, they're sleeping together again. Like, don't need to know that. But yeah, I do wonder how many pages we could take out of this if we reduce the number of those. But I tend to think about that often. You'll know I've mentioned that several times with other series as well. It's just not something I really need to know about all the time. And so, yeah, I did enjoy what I've read. I think I am going to follow a specific reading order for this series, though, because as you know, installment 6 and 7 are coming out I think at the end of this year, maybe next year or something like that. And so that's kind of one of the reasons why I decided to go ahead and pick this one up, just to kind of like get me further into the universe so that when 6 and 7 do come out, I can read them. However, I have kind of heard that this is like a whole universe, even though the author, writes different series. They're all different series. There are Easter eggs that you could be clued into if you like read everything. And so I kind of want that experience. And so what I've decided to do is go ahead and follow a reading order from That Girl Reads. I will link her video. I think it's a short down below. I don't know if it's an actual video, but I'll link her video, whatever it is, down below so you can see what reading order that I will be following. But she basically says to read up to 3 in the Court of Thorns and Roses series and then switch over to Throne of Glass. And so that's what I'm going to do. And she says to do that for the most like emotional damage type reading experience. And I feel like that would behoove me since I haven't ever read this series ever. That I could get the most like emotional connections and stuff while still exploring in a way that would give me the Easter eggs and like connections that I could see as I'm reading. And so that's what I'm going to do. You may know that I'm also reading the Zodiac Academy series by her, most emotional, damaging reading order. And so, yeah, I'm really interested to see what I think. I will also say that in my reading order for this, I have already read Crescent City, the first book in the Crescent City series. I was actually not going to continue that series, if I'm honest. I felt like the book that I had read was really, really excellent as a standalone, that I didn't need to continue because I had heard people were very disappointed with books 2 and 3 in that series. And so I was just going to leave it alone, be happy with what I read because it was a really, really good book, and just leave it as it is. But I think in light of the progression of what's going on in the universe of this author's work, I will probably end up continuing with Crescent City as well. When I get to Crescent City, it's not going to be until the end, I think, of finishing A Court of Thorns and Roses. So it's way far away. So I think at that point, I'll probably reread the first book in the Crescent City series and then continue on. But I'm excited. I am excited. It is quite a few books. And I know a lot of the books in not only this one, the 5th book is really thick. And the like 3 or 4 later books in the Throne of Glass series are also really thick. I'm just really hoping that I get really invested and I'm able to enjoy, my adventure through these series. And so, yeah, that's kind of 2 of the things that I have kind of brewing in the back of my head are long series that I really want to sink my teeth into as far as getting more installments read in. Is Zodiac Academy and this whole, what are they calling it? The Massiverse series. And so, yeah. So you'll probably see a lot of those books coming up. I don't know that I'm going to read them back to back to back because I think that's a sure way to burn me out on the whole thing. But I'm going to try to make a conscious effort in reading more on a more regular basis, but still break it up in between with other things. So it's probably going to take me a while, but again, it all depends on how invested I actually get in the series and the characters and what's going on and things like that. But I think it's going to be interesting. As far as my higher calling, though, this book does fit in because it's a fantasy, not urban fantasy. And as I was opening this volume, there is a map. And so books with maps is also one of the things I can read. So manga, books with maps, and fantasy are the things that I'm going to be trying to focus on for the rest of the month, even though with everything that I've read already for my calling, I have surpassed the page amount needed for my calling. So I've completed what I've needed to read, which is great. But in light of being on theme, I'm going to go ahead and continue reading manga, fantasy, or books with maps for the rest of this diary entry. So I think that's pretty much all I have to talk to you about right now. So I hope you're having a good one, and I will chat with you later. So I finished a few more things before I close out this diary entry. I'd like to share my thoughts with you on them. So over the last week, we had the Monochrome Manga Club meeting. And so I focused my reading on the Monochrome Manga Club selections. I usually take about 5 days or so to read the selections because we are reading quite a few volumes now, and so it does take up a good chunk of my reading week when we have the Monochrome Manga Club meeting coming up. So I will tell you the titles of the two that I am filming my first impressions video on, but I won't tell you my thoughts on them. If you're interested in hearing more about my thoughts on them, you can check out the video, which I'll link in the cards and down in the description box below. But our two first in a series selections were volume 1 of Otaku X Gal by 138 Neko with art by Sochu. This one's published by Square Enix Manga Rated Teen. I enjoyed this one. And then we also have volume 1 of Divine Incursions. This one has original story by Omi Kifuru with art by Koya Ashitaka. This one's published by Yam Press Rated Teen. This one was interesting as well. But again, if you'd like to hear my thoughts on these selections, you can check out the first impressions video that went up on my channel on Monday. So besides those two volumes, we are in the middle of reading 2 series. And so I'll talk to you about our volumes of Dr. Stone. We read volumes 10 and 11. This one is by Riichiro Inagaki, published by Viz, and this one I believe is rated teen. I am continuing to enjoy reading this series. I do feel like these 2 volumes had less of the more like sciencey aspects that really bogged down my reading for volume 7, 8, and 9. There is still quite a bit though of the sciencey stuff because obviously our main character in this story is a scientist. He's very interested in science. Is very science smart. And so along with the way that things are going in the story and them kind of coming up with different things that they had previously before society got turned into stone, they are starting to try to work their way through like what they want this world to be, who should be the ones to have say in how things should be in their new society, what kinds of things They need to do certain things, like things that they had previously had. How do you create those things with everything being like basically back to nature and the world that they're living in now? And so, yeah, it was interesting, these 2 volumes. I think, again, it wasn't bogged down by a lot of the sciencey stuff, which is what bogged me down a lot in 7, 8, and 9. But I'm still really enjoying seeing our characters work together. I'm trying to figure out how to create the things that they need and things like that. And so I ended up giving both of those volumes 3 stars. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in our next 2 volumes. Now, for our next series read, we are currently going through Land of the Lustrous. This is volume 3. This one is by Haruko Ichikawa, published by Kodansha, rated teen. So in this one, we kind of follow our characters who are basically sentient gem-like creatures. And they live in this world where they're constantly fighting these other creatures who come to invade, called Lunarians. And so we see them in their daily life, just doing the day-to-day, right? Fighting the Lunarians. In fact, volume 2 ended off with one of those fights. We end up finishing that combat in the beginning of this volume. And then it's another glimpse into how they like pass the time during the year. It's a different time of year when the story in this volume takes place. We end up meeting another gem-like creature, and it's very interesting. I am enjoying the different facets of the creature facets. Like gemstones, you know, of the creatures that we're meeting and how different they all are, and how the characteristics of their bodies kind of lend to their own characteristics, and how they act, how they go about doing things, and things like that. I really enjoyed this volume, and I'm looking forward to continuing with it. I was talking with my daughter on this one because I feel like as we go through this story, there's definitely something a little bit more deep that I kind of picked up on while I was reading this. And I don't really want to like expand on this thought that I had, because I do feel like it might be a little bit spoilery. But I really feel like we are getting a good glimpse into the main character that we're following in this one, who is Vols, and how they are, you know, trying to, I guess, better themselves in a way, and what that could ultimately mean, like, going forward. How far will they go to be the best version of themselves that they want to be? Where does that end? And, you know, just kind of things like that. It did definitely bring up a lot of things for me to think about that I didn't really think about when I was watching the anime several years ago. So it's been really interesting for me, just kind of coming to that kind of thought and thinking on it. And so I'm definitely thinking on that thing that I had kind of touched on a lot since I've read this volume. And so it's been a really interesting time for me, and I'm looking forward to continuing with this one, especially with everything that happens towards the end of this volume. And so really enjoyed this, looking forward to continuing, and gave it 4 stars. And so those are all of the manga volumes that I read this week. I did finish one book, and the reason that I only finished one book is because the book that I had started is quite long. So I'm not going to finish it anytime soon. Definitely not in time to get this video out anyway. And so I only have one more thing to talk to you about. And the book that I had finished was How to Train Your Dragon. This is the first book in the How to Train Your Dragon series by Cressida Cowell. So you know that this book series has movie adaptations, right? So in this one, we're following our main character, Hiccup, whose name is actually Hiccup Horrendous Haddock the Third. And I will say that even though this does follow Hiccup in his journey through life and meeting Toothless and all of that, the story in the novel is very, very different from the story that is in the movies. So I was very, very surprised. I did decide to pick this one up on audiobook because I do like to enjoy an audiobook during my lunch break, and I had finished A Court of Wings and Ruin. Yes. And so I needed another audiobook for my lunch break, and this one was available from Hoopla. It is narrated by David Tennant, and so I thought, oh, it's going to be a really, really enjoyable listen, and it was. I'm not someone who's very familiar with David Tennant as an actor, I will say, but I really enjoyed his narration. The audiobook, however, has something within it that I really don't enjoy in audiobooks, and that is when there are songs in the narration. And so it definitely caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting that there was going to be like song singing within the narration. And David Tennant can definitely carry a tune, but the song was just like, I didn't need it. I would have much preferred if they just said the words to the song. I didn't need the kind of childlike song melody that was given. It definitely reminded me of when I was listening to, was it The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings audiobook, where one of the characters sings during the book a few times, and the melody kind of reminded me of the melody and the song in that audiobook. And so, yeah, I just don't enjoy hearing that type of thing in the audiobook. In any case, this story was definitely not what I expected. I didn't realize going into it that it was so different. And while it was still enjoyable, my expectations were very high because, I've seen the adaptations and I really, really enjoyed them. And it just was different. It was different. I will be continuing with this one. I do have the entire series physically because my mom really wanted to read these a while back. We got a really good deal on them through Book Outlet. And so I do have the rest of the series on my shelf, and I will be reading through them eventually. I just need to lower my expectations a little bit, I think. But it was enjoyable. I gave it 3 stars. I'm looking forward to continuing my adventures with Hiccup and Toothless and seeing what other things they get into along the way. So those are all of the things that I read since I talked to you last. I don't know. I think I had overall a good reading month, because I think by the time you see this, it'll be close to the end or the end of April. I definitely feel like this round of the Orilium Spring Equinox worked really well for me because I was only worried about the genres of the books and not necessarily the specific things within the book. I bypassed my goal for the number of pages. I haven't actually calculated them all up, but I was pretty much done with my page count by the time I had talked to you last. Like I said, I bypassed that quite a bit. And so I am looking forward to seeing how I do in the autumn equinox, because usually in the autumn equinox, we are given a much harder curriculum. And so I'm expecting the page count to be quite a bit larger for that particular semester. But overall, I think I did really, really well for my first semester in world building. and I'm very happy with the number of pages that I was able to read. So with that being said, that's all of the book talk that I'm going to have for you today. As we have been doing in these diary entries since the beginning of 2026, I will be doing some Advent unboxings to end out this video. And so the first thing we're going to unbox or unpackage is my yarn Advent calendar from 2025. This is a yarn Advent calendar inspired by the Charlie Brown Christmas, and it is by Stitchin' with Yarn. Yarn Advent calendars have already been announced. I have been very, very good and have not purchased one. As much as I was very tempted by several of the themes, I don't really need the yarn. I have stepped off of knitting for a bit. My knitting mojo has been way down in the gutter for a while now, and so until my mojo comes back, I really don't need to be buying any more yarn. But I do have this lovely yarn Advent calendar from last year to continue to open this year, and so let's go ahead and do that. We have packet number 9 here, and this particular colorway is called Psychiatric Help 5 cents. So this would be Lucy and her little wooden stand, right? Giving psychiatric help to Charlie Brown. So I'm expecting some red. Definitely some red because that is the color of her box, right? Let's see. And it is very red. Look at that. Okay, it's coming out really washed out on the screen. This is a very kind of Valentine's-y colored skein. It's much deeper and darker than what you're seeing on camera. But there's lots of reds, pinks. There's hot pink here. And then there's a little speckle of black. So I am really, really happy with this. It does look orange on screen. It kind of makes me a little bit sad. But it is very, very nice. Very different from what we've unwrapped recently. This one is more of kind of a tonal, a variegated leaning tonal. Because they kind of all belong in the same color family. Other than the black speckles. But it's very, very pretty. I wish I could have you see it as it is instead of how it is coming up on screen, because it's very, very different. Much deeper. The pinks are not as bright as what you're seeing. The hot pink itself is much more of a like bubblegum pink, like a Hubba Bubba type pink. And the red goes from crimson to like a strawberry, I guess. I think that's the best way to say. And there is slight touches of fuchsia, like down here, really dark magenta-y tones, which are really nice. And so, yeah, really, really happy with that. That is definitely going to stand out. If I was doing a project where I was just putting in the skeins as I open them, this one would be so different from the rest of the ones that I have opened already. But it's very, very pretty, and I really, really am happy with that. And I think the name of the skein really, really goes with this colorway. And so very happy with that. Really enjoying opening those up. And so that is the Yarn Advent Calendar. And then we have the Nido Advent. So we have Nido number 9, which is this tiny one right here. So let's see what we've got. Strutzel. It says Strutzel. Oh, it's a pretzel that is very, very rubbery. It's much more of a harder, like rubber. It's not It's not hollow inside. It's definitely solid rubber. And then you can stretch it a little bit. I could probably stretch it a little bit more, but I fear that it would like start cracking. But yes, so that's the stretch sole. Stretch sole. I'm going to go ahead and put this one back in the box. And that pretty much will do it for this diary entry. So let me know down in the comments below what you've been doing, what you've been up to, what you've been reading. Did you participate in the Orilium Magical Readathon? And if you did, what were you working towards? And did you complete everything that you needed to for your semester? I would really love to know. And if nothing else, and you'd just like to let me know that you were here, if you could leave me a glasses emoji down in the comments below, it'd be greatly appreciated and would really help me out. And that will do it for me today. So I hope you're all doing great. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And until next time, take care and smile always. Bye.